Hi again, we're Nogueira, and with me once again Matthias Kaiser, our semantics guru at SAP.
Thank you, my goodness. Hi everybody.
So how have you been doing last time with all your apples and the semantics around it?
Well, I was trying to make my life as meaningful as possible, of course. Yeah, well, talking about apples, let's talk about pears today. No, let's talk about something more exciting. Let's talk about peanuts.
Peanuts? Why peanuts?
Yeah, well, let's try to get there. Maybe we end at something else.
Okay, curious.
Okay, last time we talked about apples, and we talked about that there are different kinds of apples and that they have different meanings and that these meanings can be described. Today I would like to push that a little bit and actually extend this notion and stretch it to something.
So you're stretching an apple to a peanut?
To a pear.
To a pear.
You have to elongate it.
Okay.
Stretched apple. Yeah, but seriously. The conventional idea of semantics, as it emerged from model theory, founded by Alfred Tarski in 1935 already, who would have thought that, was that there is the notion of truth and the notion of falsehood. So something is true or false. False. That was also false. And this is the foundation of the so-called truth conditional semantics. Now, the truth, as we say in pragmatics, the truth is in the eye of the beholder. And what that means is that what is true for somebody may not be true for another. And let me give you a short example. I mean, there are certain things that are pretty solid and pretty static. An apple is probably, many people would recognize an apple equally of where they come from and what time of day or year or decade it is. But this is not with everything so. And a drastic, as we're talking about food, and as I already mentioned, the peanuts, let me now realize that. And
why could a peanut be different for somebody?
Okay, let me talk about the meaning of a peanut today. A peanut is deemed by most of us to be edible and to be quite an enriching or let's say a nourishing food.
Mm-hmm.
So now, while it is edible and nourishing for most of us, and therefore, a food, it can actually have the meaning of being an outright poison for others. There are some people, and not so few of them, that are allergic to peanuts.
Mm-hmm.
Would you count something a food where you choke on and where you basically can die of? Probably not. That's not what I understand by a food. But people would not say it's a true food, unfortunately I die of it. That's not the semantics of a food.
Mm-hmm.
So semantics of something, the meaning of something, may vary between certain people. And the meaning of certain things may change by the context. And the context, that's what I mean by where something is happening or being done or situated, when, by whom, and all these kinds of features.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, for example, if I said in 1971, there exists a company in Germany called SAP, that would be a false statement, because SAP was founded, as a matter of fact, already in 1972. Today, the same statement makes sense. In 2011, SAP is up and kicking, of course, as we all know, otherwise we wouldn't be sitting here.
So what you're actually saying is that beyond the fact of an object being, for example, an apple, that there are other aspects that make that object also different for either a specific person, or let's call it a role in a business environment, and in time.
Exactly.
Okay.
So, certain properties of persons, like being allergic or not, or certain times, 1971 versus 2011, they may well change the meaning of something. They make it true or false. And the meaning of something is also tightly coupled with certain evolutions of things. Now let me tell you something. Let me illustrate this a little bit more. If we have a meaning meaning descriptions, as we talked last time about this, you know, that we have so-called sufficient and necessary conditions that we have to list explicitly. And we know that meaning can change by many different dimensions, like time, like roles, and all these kinds of things. Then, in order to make semantics work in a product, this means a huge amount of maintenance would be necessary. In fact, the maintenance would be so big to track all the changes and always get the right semantics for the right role at the right time for the right domain in place, that there we would host a myriad of PhD knowledge engineers at our customer sites that is not exactly associated with TCO lowering.
Meaning that the product itself should be somehow self-learning.
Exactly.
Instead, right?
Exactly. This is what it should be associated with.
But could you give an example how that self-learning could look like?
I'm about to do that. Exactly.
Oh, I'm sorry.
How did you know? Imagine the following. Imagine we are building a search engine. Now, sometimes if we search for something, we get results that we wonder why we should find them meaningful. It is even more drastic. I mean, if we search, the search is not semantic usually. The search is by string matching, which is, you know, is it orthographically similar or is it orthographically equal?
Yeah, but if you would look out for a picture, you don't have any strings, right?
That's exactly right. How did you guess that? No, I never look for pictures because I don't look.
Okay, yeah, that's true.
Not in my working environment anyway.
But
let's take this example, exactly. Yeah. Now, let's say you describe a picture. Let's say you describe a certain image that you want to search for. Mm-hmm. Should I take something with peanuts now, since we talked about them?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, you are looking for a picture of a peanut butter sandwich. What a great idea. And you have pictures. There's one picture with, let's say a nice coworker, and there's another picture with a beach scene, and there's a picture with a peanut butter sandwich. And this is what you are looking for. But it's not described, it's not tagged by anything. It's just the picture, the bitmap, or the JPEG, or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And you write the keywords peanut butter sandwich. But of course you don't find it, because it is not matching anything in the bitmap. Mm-hmm. Now you say, well, what do I do? So you go into this picture gallery and you say, well, this coworker, no, that's not a peanut butter sandwich in most cases. The beach scene, neither. But here's the peanut butter sandwich. This is what I wanted. I want to, and you click on this thing because you want to do something with it. You want to enlarge it or something like that. And while you are doing this, little associations, little strings are bound between. I mean, not strings in the sense. Little relations are made. Yeah, little threads are made
between the string that you entered in the picture. Between
the words I entered, the peanut, the butter, and the sandwich, and the picture. And now, next time you look for peanut butter sandwich or peanut sandwich or butter sandwich, which is not entirely correct, but the peanut butter sandwich being tied to these words would emerge immediately. Mm-hmm. So the system has learned that this picture actually is referred to by the keywords that you keyed in. Now, if this is done by many people, to be brief here, the smart viewer of this video, otherwise a non-smart viewer would never have viewed that far, can imagine what I'm saying now. If many people do that, this system learns more and more, learns more and more and more, and the system becomes very powerful. And if learn by sheer learning, by no maintenance, but by just interactive learning from what the users found useful and clicked on it, or somehow showed their appreciation of what they found there or not. The system can actually really learn to make relations between descriptive words and the objects they actually refer to. And this is what the meaning is. The meaning of something is, the meaning can be described by its features that basically are descriptive of that kind of object. In this case, peanut butter sandwich.
Yeah, and the timing aspect would come into play then once nobody's really looking anymore at that peanut butter sandwich, because Nutella sandwiches get much more used in the American culture.
Yeah, imagine they become now the favorite American kids' food, and the more people now do not choose, but of course you would then say Nutella sandwich and not a peanut butter sandwich. But if you for example say, okay, I now understand, or you have something and you call this thing hot news, and this hot news is, let's say, a certain message, a certain document, and you call it just hot news, and you refer to it as hot news. But tomorrow something else is hot news.
Understood. Yeah,
you know,
okay, yeah.
Then the hot news that comes tomorrow, you click on hot news, and the hot news from today comes on, and you say, this is not what I want. There must be something else. And then basically what you refer to as hot news changes with what you actually click on. And the system learns. In this case, it's not really helpful because hot news changes so frequently. But you get the idea what I mean.
Yes.
So the system does not only learn by strengthening associations between the words and the object, but it can also forget. It can also weaken these kinds of strengths of the threads. And the bottom line of this is, by interactively working with the system, you shape the meaning of the objects that are contained in the system by giving feedback, or using how you use these objects. Either you click on them or you just ignore them, and this is very important. Can I give you a more enterprise-like?
Oh yeah, that's what I was actually asking for.
We have an enterprise service repository, services that can perform complex functionalities. And in this enterprise service repository, we would have at least 2 entities for every service. The service itself and a verbal description. So in the case with the conventional search engine, you should be able to key in, for example, a certain service, let's say a purchase order service, and then you would get the purchase order service name, and you could use it. However, oftentimes the verbal descriptions of these services were just not deployed. They were just, let's say, forgotten in this prototype.
I see.
What can you do now? So the user said, oh my God, I keep that in, nothing comes back. I have to look whether I can identify from the identifying name or something, whether I can find the service manually. So they scrolled through the repository, and once they found this purchase order service, which they have searched for with purchase order service for, South America or something like that, and they clicked on this one, their description that they keyed in to search for it was associated with the service itself. Now the system could learn, without having verbal descriptions, it could learn from how the users searched for it that they actually meant this very service. If now many people did that, then the system learned better and better to associate with certain search descriptions these services. So every user had once in a while a pain to find the service that had not yet been associated with a certain description, but once it was found,
the others can take advantage.
And the others could, So one had to have the pain, and 999 profited from it. And I think this is how it goes.
So you said if the system could learn that. So does SAP already have such products in place to where you leverage these concepts?
In fact, yes. I mean, I worked on this first 11 years ago in a project called Ignis Intelligent Guidance and Navigation in Information Systems. And in end of 2008, the first project leveraged from, sometimes it takes a while because we are a big company and innovation has to find its way. In 2008, a project now by the product of FindGrid leveraged from this idea of self-improving semantic networks.
Okay.
And this self-learning is now an integral part of this product. I'm not involved in this product, but this idea was taken, and I'm very glad they did. And there will be probably a separate, and it's worthwhile to have a separate video on.
Yeah, I will talk with Stefan about SignGrid. Yeah,
great.
So, but that's just one tool. So I can imagine once you have these concepts up and running, it will be more important to have other tools and applications accessing these. Let's call them. I don't know the expression they used. These connections between what you search and the actual object to access this information becomes much more important to have a way to access information for all other tools.
Yes.
I think you're are also working on such a concept too, right?
Yes. I mean, what we really need is we have. I talked about that. The context in which certain things exist is very important to determine the meaning of these things, of these objects, of these entities, as we say in academic terms. And in an enterprise, we are in a very fortunate position. The real assets of this enterprise is that the enterprise maintains all kinds of context-sensitive information. You know everybody by role, when they got employed, what their domains is in which they are active, and what their access rights is, and all these kinds of things, you know these. So you would have, at least you have the potential to really figure out what they mean. But we have information that is very much scattered across silos, repositories, and across branches and domains and all these kinds of things. What you really would be able to do, I strongly believe, is to create what I call a unified information access, where you can basically, according to your contextual profile, let me call it profile, can exactly find very quickly the meaningful things from all over the places, from all over all places, that are actually meaningful and allowed for you to work with. And this unified information access will leverage from the idea of this semantics. By the way, I call this kind of semantics that I just described, that emerges by interaction of users or of systems, to be more abstract, with entities that exhibit a certain meaning at a certain time for a certain purpose, for a certain role, and so on, in a certain context, in short, that this concept plays an important role in the unified information access idea. And I hope that I have the chance to talk more about this.
Yeah, sure, because I think you were already working on this for quite some time.
Yes.
So, and I don't think we can talk much more about it right now. I think the aspects you just talked about, explaining it with the peanut, was very insightful. And let's do a follow-up video on the unified information access.
Yeah, but first let's have lunch.
Yes, that's actually a good idea. So therefore, guys, sorry, we're hungry. We need to finish now. And see you next time soon.
Yeah,
bye.
Bye.